Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Starkside. While you're here, I do appreciate it if you support the channel by hitting that like button. And if you're new here, please hit that subscribe as well as the notification bell. So today we'll be taking a look at the ZD Toys Iron Man 3's Iron Man Mark 42, the LED version. Now, before we get into the review, I want to say that this video might be the last review that I'll be doing for this year. The holidays are around the corner, so I'll be taking a break and we'll be back in January. Anyway, here we have the Mark 42 on this rotating base. I did try finding a Mark 1 LED version, but decided to pick this up for now. Now, before we take a closer look at the figure itself, let's go over the packaging and the accessories. So the Mark 42 comes in the standard packaging for ZD Toys Iron Man figures. For this piece here, we get an image of the armor here at the front. Then at the upper left, it says Iron Man 3. Then down here, we get this window for his arc reactor. And a little to the right is a Disney logo, as this is an officially licensed toy line. And then at this side, we get another movie logo and the Mark 42 in a flight pose. At the other side, we get another Mark 42 label and another image of the armor. Then we have ZD Toys here, which stands for Zongdong Toys. And at the back, we get some nice renders of the figure as well as a few shots of the figure in some poses. And as with all ZD Toys packaging, this is magnetized here at the front. And when you open it up, you get this huge card with a bust image of Iron Man with his arc reactor exposed here. As always, this looks awesome. And moving on to the accessories, so opening this box here, you first see a clamshell for Iron Man. Then behind it is another clamshell for his accessories. And like the Mark 6, the Mark 42 comes with some basic accessories for Iron Man figures. So it comes with a bunch of alternate hands, so we get a pair of fisted hands, two pairs of repulsor blast hands that don't have peg holes for blast effects. So the first pair here doesn't have that armor piece at the back of the hand, so this pair will give you a better range of motion for the hands. And then the second pair has that armor piece at the back, so the range of motion here is going to be limited. We also get a pair of repulsor blast hands that do have peg holes here for blast effects. And of course, we get the blast effects themselves, which look really good. So these look consistent with what we get from ZD Toys Iron Man figures. As always, I like the orange gradient that we're seeing here. That's great. Unfortunately, we only get two pieces for this figure here, but you can use blast effects from other Iron Man figures if you want. And lastly, we get this flight stand here, and it has this cool, sleek design to it. It's not translucent like what we got from the Mark 6, so that's great. It has the color scheme of the Mark 42 armor, so we get the gold here and the red, and we have the Iron Man 3 logo here. It also says Marvel 10th Anniversary Series here. That's cool. And now taking a look at the figure itself, I gotta say I have more or less chosen ZD Toys as my default toy line for MCU Iron Man. The Mark 42 here is one of Iron Man's most unique armor designs in the MCU, as it's more gold than red, and I think it looks beautiful. Anyway, let's take it off the rotating base and take a closer look. First things first, looking at the head sculpt here, I think this looks amazing. I like the gold that we get here. It's a little less saturated than the usual gold that we get for Iron Man armors. I do think the saturation could be lessened even more so that it's more film accurate to the actual gold that we get from the Mark 42 in Iron Man 3. We also get some black paint in the lines here, like in the facial slit here, which is great as it helps make the details pop out even more. And like the head sculpt, the rest of the figure looks awesome. It is super film accurate. The level of detail that ZD Toys gives us is so much better than what we get with Hasbro for their Marvel Legends Iron Man figures. I mean, comparing it with Hasbro's Iron Man 3 movie 6-inch figure line, so we have the Mark 42 here from Hasbro, ZD Toys did a significantly better job here. Granted, this Mark 42 from Hasbro is an old figure, but still, this just looks so much better. Now, more on the sculpt, you don't see any marbling here on the figure, which is great. The black paint on the lines here is pretty much consistent. I don't think I've noticed any of the painted lines here being messy or off target, so that's awesome. Also, at the back here, we get some added details in the sculpt. Unfortunately, we don't get any articulated flaps at the back with this figure, but that doesn't really bother me that much. Other than what we've seen so far, I don't have any other major complaints with the sculpt here. And as I've said in my other reviews, I think ZD Toys does a really good job of giving us mini Hot Toys figures for Iron Man. And lastly, this is the LED version. So at the back here, we get this port here. So it actually has a small cover here, which is kind of difficult to take off. So I always use a pair of tweezers to get the job done. Anyway, it has a USB charging port here. And then turning it on and let there be light. And just looking at this figure here and the Mark 85 LED version, I really think all Iron Man figures should be given LED features moving forward. Now, I do have some complaints about the LED feature here. For instance, there does seem to be some bleeding here around the arc reactor and the lenses. I guess that may be because of the plastic material that they used on these sections, or the LED itself may be too bright, so that's why there's some light bleeding through. Although you won't really notice the bleeding that much on camera and during the daytime, it gets more noticeable when the surroundings become dimmer. So like now you'll see a lot of the bleeding around these areas. Still, I think having this LED feature is better than nothing. So overall, I'm loving the sculpt and paint apps and the LED feature of this figure here. Now let's go over the articulation for Iron Man. As the head is on a ball peg, the neck articulation is going to be limited, so you can only look up that far and not so much downwards. His head does rotate. We do get some neck pivot on this figure, but it's not a lot, but he can pivot it a bit. His arms can move up only that far, even with the shoulders extended. Anyway, his arms can move down all the way, so that's great. Just a correction, so what you can do is you can actually extend the shoulder, flip this up, and then you can move the shoulders up very far. You also get butterfly joints, which for me is always great to have. The shoulders rotate 360, we get a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, and unlike Marvel Legends, his wrists are on a ball peg so you can move them in all directions, so that's awesome. He has a diaphragm pivot and you can also extend it to allow for a wider range of motion. My only gripe about this is you can see this gap here, which is kind of weird when you do flight poses because it's easily noticeable. Moving on, his legs can kick forward that far and backwards as well. And like the shoulders, you can also extend his hips down so you get drop down hips here. So his legs can kick forward and backward even further than before. And because of the drop down hips here, his hips can move outward very far, so that's great. He has a thigh swivel, double jointed knees, and like his wrists, his ankles are on a ball joint so he can move in all directions. Now for some figure comparisons, here's the ZD Toys Mark 42 next to the Hasbro Iron Man 3 Mark 42 figure, and as you can see, this new figure looks way cooler than Marvel Legends. And here's the Mark 42 next to some other ZD Toys Iron Man figures that I've reviewed so far. We have the Mark 6 and the Mark 85. And I gotta say, it makes me really happy to see Iron Man figures that look like they're made of actual metal side by side. So that's my review of the ZD Toys Iron Man 3 Iron Man Mark 42. I think this figure has a decent amount of accessories. Packaging is cool. I think this figure has an awesome sculpt and excellent paint job. Lastly, the articulation is good and decent. It's almost the same as Hasbro's. And despite the LED flaws, I still think it's an excellent feature to have. So I love this figure. And if you're wondering where I got this figure, so I got this figure from Hobby Toys. So if you want to check that out, there's a link in the description below. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this figure. Let me know what you think of my review. Please leave a comment below. And if you like this video, I do appreciate it if you support the channel by hitting that like button. And if you still haven't, please hit that subscribe as well as the notification bell. You can also follow me on social media, links in the description below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.